we had to get a company of men out. 2-4 Charlie, I believe, was his call sign. There was about a couple hundred guys there, and they were surrounded by anywhere from, the estimates, from 2,000 to 5,000 North Vietnamese troops. So we had to get them out in a hurry for them to have any chance. And we brought a first slick in, and the slick received all kinds of heavy fire. So Waldo put rockets underneath. Broke. He received fire. I put rockets underneath him to suppress the fire. The slick still received fire. I received fire. So we kept coming in at different angles, trying to find a way into that LZ that was not covered by Indian or by enemy troops like ants. And everywhere we came in was the same thing. I mean, you received heavy enemy fire everywhere. I'd hear a slapping ping-like sound as a bullet came through, ripped through the aircraft. And it looked like a photographic convention down there. It just looked like it was just lit up with muzzle flashes. And you knew there was a piece of hot metal right behind every one of those. I took several hits as I was starting to break left, and a huge explosion on the right side of the ship. And the ship pitched up in the air like this and over. I'd had no idea what had happened. I thought we were dead for sure. We were only about 50 feet above the trees when it happened. And I finally got it under control and got it turned around and tried to fire my rockets, and they wouldn't fire. And then about then, another huge explosion on the left side of the ship. And then the crew said, "We're on fire, sir, we're on fire, we're on fire." And I glanced back at the rocket pod, and both rocket pods, all the rockets were hung up in the tubes. And the rocket motors that sent the warhead to the ground is full of fuel too. They were all twisted and burning. And right between those things is your fuel cell. And so I had a mechanical jettison for emergency, and I had an electrical jettison. And we had taken so many hits by then, they'd knocked those systems out. The mechanical jettison did not work. The electrical jettison did not work. And the crew saved our lives that day. My crew chief, Davis, at the time. And I believe it was a fellow named Luckin, was the gunner. They had bungee cords around their waist, and they got out of that aircraft at 140 knots with an M60 like this in one hand, shooting underneath us to try to. And Jack Cloud, the co-pilot, was raking it with miniguns at 2,400 rounds a minute to try to keep it suppressed so we could get the hell out of there. And they were kicking. They were out on the skids kicking those burning rocket pods where the warheads are about ready to blow up. And they finally kicked them off. And I said, "Thanks, guys." And then a round came up, and deep-end smoke grenade. They used to be on a rack on the bulkhead back here, and there were several colors of smoke that you'd mark enemy locations with. Somehow an AK round came up, took it out of the cradle, deep-ended it, threw the handle off of it, activated it, spun it around, and threw it into an M60 ammo box. And we immediately went instrument flight rule on cockpit. You couldn't see a damn thing. It was just red. And then the thing got really hot, and it started cooking M60 rounds off in this box. So sometimes the brass would go further than the bullet because there's nothing to hold it. But still, sometimes it was chaos, and absolute chaos in the cockpit. And yelled back at Davis. I said, Davis, get rid of that. He was so full of adrenaline that I saw about 160, 70-pound guy have it with an M60 in one hand, take a box, I don't know what it weighed, but it weighed a lot, full of .308 ammo, took it with his left arm, straight hand, picked it up with his two fingers and thumb like this, and pitched it out the door, and it flew way out there. And then I had my head out the window in the aircraft in a severe crab so I could see. And I felt like I had a bullseye on my helmet, because we were still taking hits. And finally got enough smoke cleaned out that I could see, and I kicked the pedal back around. We were headed right toward the top of a ridge line, and I pulled all the power I had, and the belly of the aircraft skated right off the trees. The blades caught some of the tops of the branches. Is actually how close it came. And we wobbled back to Firebase Polly Klang. And I said, Waldo was following me back, and I said, Waldo, will you give me a fly around and see if this thing's still on fire? Or look, is anything hanging off of it, or are we going to make it back? How's it look? And he said, well, doesn't look too good. But anyway, we made it back, and on final approach, there was a Cobra team that was going to take our place. And I never will forget, they were on the side of the runway when we were coming in on final, and they were looking up at us like this. And my wires were hanging out, flopping from the pods were gone. The miniguns, one was pointed up like that, one was pointed down like that because they'd been shot completely out. The ammo belts were hanging. There were holes all over the aircraft. A round had come up through Jack's seat, and the co-pilot hit the seat and went out the door, and there was a hole in the door about like this. And there's bullet holes all over the damn thing, in the blades and everything else. And I've always done strange things under stress anyway, so I gave it to Jack, and on final, and this is back in the days when you smoked a cigarette whenever you wanted to or wherever you wanted to, lit a Camel, and on final, these guys were looking at us like this. And so I just lit a Camel and took a drag and went. And they said, you could read the guy's lips. You couldn't hear him, but in the cockpit. But the guy said, "Fuck." And we lost 17 aircraft that day. And that one day, that was March 30th, 1969.